Afternoon, everyone. I am back at home in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I can't say that I'm all that happy about it. It was a 60-degree temperature change yesterday from when we left Daytona Beach, or we left Orlando. It was about 80 degrees, and we got home last night, and it was 18, maybe not even that. So we're back at home in the cold tundra of Michigan, but we had a great time, Mark and I did, on our trip to Daytona. And I wanted to just share a little bit about it with you because it was my first time to Daytona Beach, to the Daytona 500, and I've heard so many good things about it, but I wanted to experience it for myself. I've been to several other racetracks, but Daytona is like no other. It's huge, absolutely huge, and I think we all know that even from watching the race on TV, but the amount of people that were there, the excitement, just everything about the event, it's hard to explain to someone if you haven't been there yourself. So I wanted to experience that, and actually my bucket list is every NASCAR track, and then I'll work my way down from there. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit about why it was important for me to go there and what we did, and I want to encourage all of you to put it on your bucket list. So Mark and I left a week ago Friday, and we spent a couple nights in Orlando. That's where we landed. That's where we flew into. It's a little cheaper to fly into there, just in case anybody's interested in next year what you want to do about going there. We were in a nice hotel in Orlando. I spent some time with my niece and her husband who live over on the Tampa side of Florida, which was really nice. But the first night we got there, on Friday night, we took a little rickshaw type thing. There's a lot of those down there. They all want to drive you wherever you want to go. Very entrepreneurial, and so I admire that. So we got in the little bicycle rickshaw, and we told him what we were looking for to eat, and he took us to Miller's Ale House. So we went to Miller's Ale House, and there had to be at least 50 televisions in the place, and it was buzzing with activity, of course, and we got a table on the patio so we could enjoy the nice weather. Mark was sitting where he could see more of the televisions than I did, and of course I was on my phone, and he said, "Oh, you should turn around and watch, there's drag racing on." And I said, okay, and so I finished what I was doing on my phone, and just as I turned around, up on the screen of the drag racing television, I saw myself, I saw TK and Jeremy Boyd, and I saw Ashley Sanford, who is a drag racer, and in the background was the IWMA Nation banner from our PRI trip. And I think I let out a scream. I'm not even sure what I said at first. I was so shocked. I'm like, Mark, what is that doing on the television? How did that get there? I thought somebody was playing a joke on me. And so I watched it, and FS1 actually had done a story on Ashley Sanford. And Ashley had been in our booth at PRI and had done an autograph session, and I just could not believe what I was seeing. Now, we were only on for a few seconds, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, but I was just, I just couldn't believe it. I still have a hard time believing it, and I've watched it several times, but that was amazing to see us with our logo and to see TK and Jeremy and Ashley and I on the television on FS1. I can't even explain to you how that felt. So a friend of mine from Send Out Cards had actually taped the race, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw you at the end of the drag race in Sonoma." I think they were in Sonoma or somewhere. I'm not sure where they were at, in California. But anyway, she had taped the race, and she said, "I saw you on there, and I knew right away it was you." And so she was able to save that little portion of the video and send it to me, and I was able to upload it to our Facebook page. So if you haven't seen it, go on our Facebook page, International Women's Motorsports Association, and you'll be able to see the video of us on FS1. And very cool. So over the weekend, I actually talked to a young man who works for FS1, and he works for the NASCAR division but he was going to try to find the guy that did that little piece on Ashley Sanford and see if he could hook me up with him so I could get a really good video of that. So that's how our trip started. I can't even tell you, I thought if this is how it's going to go, wow, we're going to have a great trip. And we really did. We had an amazing vacation. So we stayed in Orlando the first 2 nights. On Sunday, we drove to Daytona Beach, and we stayed there for 4 days on the beach. And I attended the racing promoters workshops that were held on Monday and Tuesday. Very, very good information. If you are a racetrack owner or a promoter and you're not going to one of those workshops, you're not doing your track or your fans any service, because the knowledge that is shared there and the information that they shared with the people that were there, plus just talking to the other people that attended, was worth its weight in gold. And I learned so much and I met so many very interesting people. You know, my goal at some point is to do some events at other tracks for the women that are at those tracks. And how do you meet those track owners or promoters? You go to events like this. So if you're in an event, or if you're a promoter and you're a track owner, you need to put either Daytona, excuse me, Indianapolis, or Las Vegas, I think it's Reno, on your schedule. Honestly, I was told the Daytona one is the best one, but they probably are all very good. Put it on your list for next year. Budget it in. The hotel gave us a great rate to stay there. The conference is not that much money, and you get 4 days at Daytona Beach, or 3. It's well worth the money. So I encourage all of you to do that. Sorry, I had to take notes. There were so many things we did, I didn't want to forget anything. So we did have a couple days of rain on and off, which is typical for Florida, so no big deal. We were going to go to New Smyrna on Sunday night, but it was raining. So I went to the workshop on Monday, and then Monday evening we decided we were going to go to New Smyrna. They were going to run the K&N race that had been rescheduled from the night before, and then they had the Florida Modifieds. And I really enjoy watching Modifieds because I don't get to see them that often. So we headed out to New Smyrna, and we got there just as it was going to start, which I know is not the best idea when you go to a track like that. We had to park way, way in the back corner, right next to where they threw all the old pallets. Our car was right next to it. I got out and stepped on a big pile of pallets. So we were way in the back of the parking lot, but what a great track. I know it's been around forever, and a lot of you have probably been there and watched races, but I had not, so another first for me. The K&N race was a very good race. We had some gals that raced in it, which was interesting for me. I like trying to see the people that I've met. I like to be able to meet them in person and watch them race. It just makes the connection so much better. So we watched the K&N race, and then the Florida Modifieds came out for their race. And whoa, talk about loud. Now, I've gone to a lot of racetracks, and this really doesn't bother me. And it's not that it bothered me, but those cars are really, really loud. And great racing, again. Really enjoyed it. And then the last race that we watched, stayed for and watched, was the Modified Series that was there running that night. Again, really good racing, a lot of fun. The crowd, even for a weeknight, everybody stayed in. It was a great time. So put that on your list. If you're going to go to Daytona, New Smyrna is a 30-minute ride, if that. Put that on your list because it's a great track. Now, I didn't make it to Volusia, to the dirt track. The rain kind of had a little bit to do with that on our schedule. Maybe next year I'll make it there because I know they also raced pretty much every night when the weather intervened. And I was watching the results from there. Great, great racing the whole week. It's called Speed Week, people. That's why I need to be there. So we did those kinds of races. Now, I had applied for credentials for Daytona. So we went to the credentials area trailer offices on Tuesday. And there was a little bit of a mix-up as things go. I mean, they hand out thousands of credentials, so no fault of theirs. It took us 3 days to get the credentials straightened out. We were at the credentials office 5 times over that week, but everything worked out. The people that worked there were amazing. A shout out to Lisa and Rochelle. They were the best. And Tom made the credentials come through with flying colors at the end. So I was able to get my hard card, which is so exciting because that lets you go anywhere on the track that you want to go. It's a media hard card. And my husband was able to get a cold pass. So I was able to take him into the garages and kind of show him around because he hadn't ever been to a race like this with me where I was able to go into the garages. So that was fun to be able to show Mark, you know, why I love it, what I do, and why it's so much fun for me to go to these races. So now we got our credentials, and I want to share with you a little bit that I got to look because I think we went to a race. Yeah, we actually went on Sunday night, the night we got to Daytona. I forgot to tell you this. We went to the Clash. I can't remember ever hearing about the Clash before. That was all new to me, but we were pulling through Daytona and we just gotten there, and it was, you know, an hour or so before the Clash started, and we decided, what the heck, we'll just go. The tickets aren't that expensive, and I'm sure we can get some. So we pulled into the Bass Pro and thought we'd do a little shopping first, and we were able to get a couple tickets from a guy who was leaving. And so we went to the Clash, and that was interesting. It was the NASCAR guys divided into 2 groups, and basically it was two groups of racing, and it was, you know, it was good. It got a little chilly, but that was kind of a bonus race for me because I really wasn't expecting that. I really didn't know anything about that race, and so that was kind of fun. And that's the day we were on the grandstand side. So that's the only day out of all the races we went to that we were actually in the grandstands. So that gives you one perspective of the size of the track and the size of the grandstands. And then the rest of the time, we were in the infield for the rest of the races. So, you know, for me, it isn't just about the racing, the actual race day. For me, it's about the people that I've met, or the people that I know, or that I've met through Facebook or social media. And then I'm able to meet them in person. To me, meeting somebody in person just makes them my friend, more so than just talking to them over the phone or interviewing them. So I actually was excited to see the Austin Terrio, who is a young man that my son Ben and I had met a few years ago. Great racer, great race car driver. He has a ride in the Truck Series, which I'm so excited for him. I just wish him all the best because we really would like to see him succeed in the Truck Series. So he and Jennifer Jo Cobb, I saw both of them. They unfortunately didn't qualify for the race, but I was so glad to be able to see both of them and say hello. And then my other 2 favorites in the Truck Series are Todd Gilliland. Again, we met Todd when he was about 15 years old. He actually came to Kalamazoo and raced with his dad, David Gilliland, back when Ben had his car. And so they came in a few days early, and we rented the track and shared the track with them. And I was kind of the hostess with the mostest, and I brought food and stuff for everybody. And so we made friends with them when they were here in Kalamazoo, which was kind of fun. And now I've been following Todd in his racing career, and he's 18 years old. He'll be 19 in May. And he's able to run the Daytona race for the Truck Series this year because he's finally 18. And so I met up with him and his mom and sister, and we're going to have an interview with his mom here coming up soon. Wonderful, wonderful family, and I was so excited to see him do well in the race until he got wrecked. And then, of course, we love Natalie Decker. She's one of our very favorites. Love Amy and Sue, her mom and aunt, and followed Natalie quite a bit over the last 2-3 years, and have really made friends with that family and that race team. And we love that girl. She's amazing. Unfortunately, as most of you know if you follow racing, there was something on the track. 3 trucks got flat tires. Unfortunately, her tire, the tire cut the fuel line, I believe is what happened, and her car was on fire. She made it to her pit stall, and her crew, amazing crew. Shout out to that crew, because they got her out of that car and literally threw her over the wall. I mean, it just looked like they just picked up a little rag doll and threw her over the wall. And she's okay, but that car had a big fire, and I know it was scary for her and her family and all of us that love her. But she didn't get to race. That was the end of her night after, I think, only about 5 laps. But the main thing is that she was okay, and she's good to go for the next race. And like I said, she's got an amazing crew. So that's good. That's good for us to know, the ones of us that care about her, especially as a special friend. So it was kind of fun, though, to watch qualifying for the trucks from pit road. So that was interesting. And I was able to watch Natalie in the qualifying as well as Todd. But Natalie was actually leading the qualifying for a while. Quite a few drivers had gone out. She was still in the lead. And it was really fun to see that, because, you know, I haven't watched qualifying from pit road. And so I had a chance to do that. And that was a lot of fun. It just gives you a whole different perspective. So a couple other people that I was able to meet in person were Kendra and Amy Cassidy. They were in our magazine when I did the issue about the Full Throttle track up in Canada. They're a couple of young girls. I believe Kendra's in college, Amy's still in high school, and they were at their very first ever NASCAR race. Well, Daytona's the place to go if you're going to go to your first NASCAR race. And I was able to meet them in person. Their pictures on our Facebook page. So check out Amy and Kendra. It was good to see them and meet their parents as well. So what all goes on at Daytona? Well, Thursday night is what they call the duels. And we watched the duels from the infield. Again, a good perspective. They have great seating, big screen TVs, and you're saying, well, why did you go all the way to Daytona and then watch it on the big screen? Well, I could walk out onto pit road and watch it from there. But honestly, it's great being able to see from the infield, because I can still see the cars going around. I can still hear the sounds and smell the smells of the gas and the food, and you can hear the cheers of everybody. But it's a great place to sit and watch the race, honestly. So we watched the duels on Thursday night, and then Friday we went back for the truck race on Friday night. And then we were there on Saturday for the Xfinity race, and Sunday, of course, for the NASCAR race. So who else did I meet? And who, you know, there's just tons of people there, and you sit down next to somebody and you're all there for the same reason. You all love racing. So some of the people that I ran into, and I'm going to look at my notes so I don't forget. So Rowdy Maglite has a radio show, and you should check him out. Rowdy, as in Kyle Busch Rowdy, Maglite, M-A-G-L-I-T-E. He has a radio show, and he follows ARCA really closely. He's a great reporter for the ARCA series, but there's so many young people from ARCA that have now moved up into the truck series that he's kind of moving over and following the truck series some too. So I think Rowdy's going to be, you know, his coverage is going to be spreading, not just ARCA, but other things too. But I ran into him, and so I encourage you to follow him and listen to his show. He's very knowledgeable about racing. He has a passion for it, and just another really good connection that I've made. I met him at the PRI show. And then my friend James Snyder, hello James, he was the first person that I'd ever heard about a hard card, and he explained to me how that all worked, and I knew immediately I wanted one. And so he's from Florida. I met him last year, actually, at the Michigan race. And I met up with him again in Daytona, and we had a nice visit, saw each other several times. I also ran into Kristen. Kristen is a marketing person for the Phoenix International Speedway, which now it's got another name. But I ran into Kristen and some of her fellow people from the Phoenix track, so it was nice to see her. And you think it's a small, or you think it's such a big area, but I ran into her every day. We saw each other every day that we were there, even though there were hundreds of thousands of people there, which was kind of fun. But great being able to catch up and see people that you know and you've met, and it becomes a family. It's just like your racetrack and the people you meet. We're a family, and that's just how it works in racing. It's different than any other sport. So let's see. I want to see what else okay. So one of the things that Mark enjoyed, I want to tell you about. The University of Northern Ohio was there, and Kenny Wallace is big with that school. He does a lot of work with them. They had 3 guys who tore down an engine and put it back together in a very short time. I want to say less than 30 minutes. And Mark was impressed because he said the very first time they fired up the engine after they had tore it down and put it back together, it fired up. So he was pretty impressed with that. And they were doing demonstrations all weekend long. And the men were pretty much crowded around that area to watch that. So that was kind of an infield entertainment that the people that sit in the grandstands didn't get a chance to see. And then I also, I met Angela Cope. She's now married, and her last name is, I think, Rush. It's R-U-C-H. But Angela was in the truck race, and I knew of her, but I hadn't ever met her. So after the truck race on Friday night, when there were only a handful of trucks left in the final laps of that race, she was one of them. And so Mark and I went to the garage area, and we waited for her to come back to her hauler. And I was able to talk with her for a little bit. We're going to do some interviews with her down the road here. But it was good to see a gal. She was able to miss all the wrecks that happened. She missed running over anything. And her car, or her truck, looked pretty good when it came to the hauler compared to so many of the other trucks had duct tape all over and those big strips of adhesive that they taped the cars back together. So it was really good to meet her. We enjoyed talking to her. And again, we'll watch for an interview down the road and a story in the magazine about Angela. So it was good to meet her. So Saturday's the Xfinity race. I was in the media center and I met Monica, and I'm not sure of her last name. I believe it's like Bumbly, but Monica was the reporter for ISM. And so she went around all weekend long, and she interviewed people in the crowd, and she gave away things and just did all kinds of, talked to the drivers, and all of those things that she did were up on the big screens at the track. It wasn't Fox Sports, but she was making the rounds and talking to everybody, and it was really nice to meet her in the media center. Very, very nice young lady. And she's very interested in being in our magazine and doing a podcast with us to share what she does in racing. And I was actually out ready to watch the driver introductions, and she came right over to me where I was standing, and we chatted for a minute. And then she did one of her contests, giveaways with some of the guys behind me. They ask them questions about NASCAR, and they want a riding experience, like Richard Petty riding experience. And so I kind of stepped back and let the guys, have a chance to win it, because I didn't figure I could do it with the way my back is. And of course, I knew all the answers to the questions. So then I was kind of irritated with myself that I didn't do it, but it was fun, and it was fun to meet her. And now another friend that I'll see at other races. And that's what I love about this, really, most of all. So great Xfinity race. it was a little on the boring side. I just hate to say that because I love racing, but watching those cars go around single file, I don't know if all the crashes in the truck race the night before had anything to do with that, but didn't really seem like there was a lot of drivers taking chances or trying to get to the front as much as I would have liked. But again, the experience of being there, you can't take that away. And we had a great time in the infield that day and watching the race. So I'm not unhappy about it. I just wish that race had been a little bit better. But while we were sitting there watching the race, Mark motioned to a guy, "Hey, come here." And the guy walked over to him and he said, "Are you the guy from Moonshiners?" And he said, "Yes." And so my Mark met Mark Rogers, who is on the Moonshiners show. And if you guys don't watch that, I think it's on Discovery or History or something, but they literally make their living making moonshine. Now, how they get away with that and they don't get arrested, and I don't know how that all works, but it works because they're on television. And he came over and talked to my Mark for a little bit, which was fun for him because he watches that show. So you never know who you're going to see, because that fan zone, that's where the drivers, if they're not racing, if they want to watch, they a lot of times come in that area to sit. And so that was a lot of fun too. So let's see, let me look at my list here and see what I haven't told you about. You know, the Sunday race, I guess we're ready to go to the Sunday race. First of all, it was sold out, 100,000 some people. I don't know how many people were in the infield where I was at. For a while, it was so busy that you couldn't hardly walk through it. That's when I went to the infield out by the stage. There were lots of people sitting out there in the grass waiting for driver introductions. Jake Owen gave a concert, so they were waiting for that to happen. So what I did on actually Saturday and Sunday is I took these bracelets that we have, Racing Girls Rock, IWMANation.com. I took about 400 of those with me when I went on this trip, and I brought home about 12, I think I counted. So a lot of bracelets away. And I walked through the crowd in the infield, and then also out when they were waiting for the driver introductions and that. And I just walked through and I said, "Hey, would you like a bracelet?" And if they said yes, then I said, you know, I gave them one of these cards that we did at for PRI. It gives our information on it. And then on the back it says Racing Girls Rock Podcast, sponsored by Send Out Cards, Midwest Compact Touring Series, and Kalamazoo Speedway. And I just handed those cards out, and I met some really cool women, some little girls who race, and some dads who were with their daughters. So it was really fun. And I spent probably 3 hours on Saturday and 3 hours on Sunday just meeting people, handing out bracelets and information, and got some information back from some people. I met Isabel. Isabel's 6 years old, and she's in her first year of racing go-karts, and she was the cutest thing. So we had a little video that we did on her, and just a lot of fun meeting people face to face. There's nothing better, and everybody's there. We're all there for the same thing. We all love racing. So that was a really, really fun time. I also met with my friend Ginger Baker Rust. She is the marketing director, I'm not sure of her exact title, but she works with Ryan Newman, the number 6 car this year with Roush Fenway. And amazing woman, just love her. She's very knowledgeable about racing, and met her in Chicago last year, or maybe Michigan, one of those places. But she and I become friends, and she asked me if I would be interested in meeting up with some of her guests that day on Sunday, and I said sure. So I met up with her in the garage area, and just as she and I were meeting, her son and her daughter-in-law came up to her, And she was, you know, a little surprised. She thought they were coming, but she wasn't 100% sure. And she was, you know, of course, excited to see her son and daughter-in-law. And then her son said, "Hey, Mom, turn around. I've got a surprise for you." And she turned around, and there was her other son, who is in the military, and he had been overseas, and he's going to a different country in a few days. But in between time, he was able to fly home or fly to Daytona and surprise her at the race. And she's a very hard woman to surprise, and they pulled it off, and it was very cool to be there to experience that. So I got some pictures of her with her sons that are in the military, and she's working with a group called StopSoldierSuicide.org. I met the man that founded it. I met the current CEO. We did an interview that I'll be sharing on here later, but we just really had a good time listening to what they had to say about why they started this organization, what they do to help. So soldier suicide is a big deal. It happens a lot more than probably any of us are aware. And this organization, he told me, has 3,500 different resources that they can help families who lose a member to suicide. That's a close thing to my heart. So even though my son wasn't in the military, I understand what happens when you lose a family member to suicide. And so we had a good conversation. Going to be working with them some in the future, helping them promote what they're doing. And I was honored to be able to talk with them and was asked to help share what they do, because it's an amazing organization. It's been around for 8 years, and I had never heard of it. And I think that there's a lot of people that don't know it exists. So we've got to get the word out to families who need that help. And that's what I'm going to try to do is help them out some. So that was good to be able to meet them and be there on Sunday and be able to do an interview with them. So it was hot on Sunday, and I was out in the outfield handing out these bracelets, and I sent Mark to try to find us a shady spot. Now, there's not a lot of shady spots in the infield in Daytona, but I had my hat, so if we had to sit in the sun, we were okay. But he found us a shady spot with John. John was sitting at a table, and Mark asked if he could share the table with him, and of course he said yes. So they saved me a chair, and when I came to sit down with them, I noticed right away that John was in a wheelchair. And of course, you just assume, because of the age, that I thought he was probably in his 40s, that he was probably a veteran and something had happened. But no, John had an interesting story. John was an interesting guy all around, but he had an interesting story. He actually lost his right leg below the knee when he was stung, and I'm going to get this right, by a Portuguese man of war. And what that is that's like a jellyfish. And it's a very toxic jellyfish. And John had gotten stung by this, and in order to save his life, they had to amputate part of his right leg. He was a very fun guy to sit with to watch the race. He knew a lot of people. He's been going to the race many years. He probably has sat in that spot several times because he scoped out where the shade is. And so we were able to sit with him to actually watch the race and get to know him better. And so interesting of a man, to think that what he's been through, and he has the most grateful, really, attitude about things. And you would think that someone in that situation would not be grateful. And he said to Mark, when you lose a limb, all the others become way more valuable. And of course that's true, but he got around great. He didn't really want your help or need it, but he was an interesting guy. And so we've made another friend, and he said, I'll be here next year and I'll save you a couple seats in the shade. So I'm hoping we can go back next year and see our friends. Of course, if you watched the race, you know that it was a long race. It was an exciting race. And at the end, it was a race full of sparks and crashes. And there weren't very many cars left at the end, just as in the truck race. I loved that the Cup race was exciting and side by side and three in a row, and they made it fun for the fans. There was a sellout crowd. There was no empty seats that I could see from where I was looking up into the grandstands. They were full from end to end and top to bottom. So prior to the race, I was able to go out on pit road, and I went, of course, to my favorite driver's area, which was Kyle Busch. And I was able to watch him come and be with his family and his little boy. And then after the national anthem, Samantha walked right up to where I was at, and I introduced myself to her again, as we did a story on her, as you know, not too many months ago. And she remembered that and thanked me again for it. And just such a nice person. Honestly, she's a lovely, lovely lady, and I'm proud to be able to say that I once again got to see and speak with her, and so that was a lot of fun. So why did I share all of this with you? Day by day, what we did, what was fun, because everybody says, oh, racing's dying. I disagree. I was just in Daytona, 100,000 people plus filled those stands on an 80-degree day in Florida. They were in the sun most of the day, and they were all having a great time. We met new people. We made new friends. When we go back, now we know where to park because we found a great place to park, and we made a friend with Cindy, and Cindy remembers our names, and she said, you better come back here and park next year. Now, it wasn't cheap, but I could walk right across the street to the track, so I didn't care because I don't want to have to walk very far. And she was amazing, and she uses send-out cards. So we had a good conversation about that, which was really funny. And so now we know Cindy, and she's done that. She parks cars in front of that property. She's done it for 15 years. So she's probably going to be there next year. So we're going to look for Cindy to park our car. We're going to look for John, you know, in the infield to sit and watch the races with. I'm going to look for Ginger and meet up with her at every NASCAR race that I go to this year. I'm going to look for Liz Prestella, the tire specialist for Chris Buescher's team. She's become a friend. I'm going to look for James Snyder. I'm going to look for Rowdy Maglite. And now I know Monica. Every time I go to a race, I make more friends. And for me, I love the racing, but I love the people that I meet and the stories that I hear. And I love the little girl, Isabel, that I met. And she told me about racing and why she loves it. That's what it's all about. You don't get that when you go see the Tigers play. Now, believe me, I love baseball, but it's different. It's just not the same. So I want to encourage anybody that's listening to this to find a local racetrack. It could be dirt. It could be a drag strip. It could be a quarter midget track where little kids run. Find a local racetrack and go. Go more than once, because some nights the racing is better than others. Give it a try. Take a friend. I stood next to two guys who were on pit road on Sunday, and we were watching the cars roll off after they said, gentlemen, start your engines. And they were talking back and forth, and I could tell they didn't really know a lot about racing because, you know, just the questions they were kind of asking each other, neither one of them knew. So I said to them, oh, it must be your first race, huh? They're like, yeah, we just decided if we were going to go to a race, we were going to go all out and buy the tickets to be on pit road. And I said to them, there's no better place to be than in the infield for me. I mean, I love being able to see from the grandstands too, but you know, they wanted to know how many miles could those cars go before they needed gas, and what was stage racing, and how does that work, and why do they do it? And so I had a really nice conversation They were probably in their mid-30s, these two guys, but they'd never been to a race. But when they went to Daytona, first of all, the Great American Race, it was their first race, and they went all out and bought the best passes of anything they could get because they wanted to see it up close and personal. So find a local track to do the same thing. Go take a friend. Find a group of people that you know and rent the party deck one night. Support your local tracks. It all feeds up to the Daytonas. It all feeds up to the big guys, the Kyle Bushes, the Denny Hamlins, the Joey Logano's. They all start at a small track somewhere. The Todd Gillilands, he's going to be there soon enough. He's in the trucks already. The Natalie Deckers. So find a local track. Maybe you have to drive an hour. It doesn't matter. It's fun. It's great family entertainment. It's reasonably priced family entertainment. And you can't even explain the experiences. The people I've met are friends forever. And you'll find that same thing too. Go to the races, meet some new friends, and support a sport that some people would like to say is dying. I don't believe it. I believe that all it takes is for you and I to take some new friends to the track, to stop bashing things on Facebook, be positive, say what a great time my husband and I had on our Daytona Speed Week trip. I'm ready to do it again next year. And if you're there, I hope that I'm going to see you there too. So I know this has been a little long, but there was so much that we did. I had to share it with you. So I'm going to replay this tonight at 7 because I've been gone and I've missed my granddaughters playing basketball for the last couple of weeks. And that's important to me too. And so I'm going to go watch them play basketball this evening, and I'll replay this at 7 o'clock. And feel free to put some comments and things in here. If you were at the race, what was your favorite thing that you did while you were at Speed Week? And let's share and let's grow this sport to be the #1 sport. I love it. I want you to love it, and I want to share it with you. So I'll talk to you next Tuesday. I think we're going to have a guest next Tuesday, so tune in for that. And everybody have a great week. Bye.